Loaded with rumors and half-truths, our newsroom stands out for one reason: credibility. At High Power 102.7, we deliver the truth.
Yes, a very beautiful morning, and of course, welcome to another episode edition of Political Perspective on your darling station, iPower 102.7 FM. Yes, today we examine Nigerians' electoral system, the law, the technology, the challenges, and the responsibility of institutions and citizens. With the Electoral Act in place, the increasing calls for real-time transmission of results, and the many Nigerians asking this question: are we truly strengthened in our democracy? I am your host, Florence Ibhareman, and this is Political Perspective. On the program today, we'll be looking into different segments as regards the electoral reforms, beginning from the new Electoral Act, the demand for real-time transmission of results. We have the challenges of conducting elections, the expected duty of the opposition and the media and their duty. And of course, before we wrap up today's edition, we would bring in a guest who will be doing justice to all of those questions and more. So please sit back and relax, because of course, political perspective is worth your time. For those just joining, the program is Political Perspective on your darling station, iPower 102.7 FM. And like I said earlier, today our focus is on the strengthening Nigerians' electoral processes, looking at the angles of the electoral reform itself, asking for the demand for real-time transmission of results, the challenges of conducting elections, and of course the expected duty of the opposition and the media as regards its duty as well. Yes, our guest today is a person of high repute, Dr. Adedeji Peter Ademefon. He's a political economist and development worker for about 2 decades. And in the past 16 years, he has been working to support effort at strengthening democracy ethos and, of course, good governance through election observation towards engineering free, fair, and credible election. Also, he is the as a local is a really local government chair of Ondo State. Yes, pending when our guest joins us on the program. The program is Political Perspective on your darling station, IPA 102.7 FM. And the theme for today's edition is Strengthening Nigerians' Electoral Process. And now we have our area of focus, which is the Electoral Act 2022, real-time transmission of result, electoral challenges, roles of the opposition, the roles of the media, and of course, oversight by the Independent Electoral Commission. Glad to have you back. The program is still Political Perspective on your darling station iPower 102.7 FM. And of course, today we're discussing how to strengthen the electoral reforms. And our focus ranges from the different topics as regards the new Electoral Act, the demand for real-time transmission of results, the challenges in conducting elections, of course, the expectation and the duty of the opposition, as well as the media and their duty. And yes, our guest in the house this morning is no other person than Dr. Adedeji Peter Ademefon. He is a political economist and, of course, a development worker for about 2 decades. And of course, in the last 16 years, he has worked to support effort at strengthening democracy and good governance through elections observation towards engineering free, fair, and credible elections. Good morning, Dr. Adedeji. Good morning, sir.
Great to be here. Good morning. Good to.
It's a pleasure having you in the house, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
That's good to know, sir. Yes, sir. This morning on Political Perspective, we want to look at the electoral reforms. So what, when it comes to electoral reforms, what do you think as regards this new electoral reforms? What are the things that have been put in place to ensure that the reform itself comes in handy?
For inviting me. So the first thing is to state that for every election cycle in Nigeria, there's been Electoral Reforms Act enacted, the wake of democracy in 1999. The purpose of this is that for every national elections that are required to strengthen electoral integrity, to accountability. So for every off-cycle elections that we've had at the state level or the general elections at the national, there's always new things that are required to strengthen our electoral outcomes in terms of conducting free, fair, and credible elections. So for the 2026 Electoral Act that the President just signed on to, of course, a lot of outcries around electronic transmission of real-time electronic transmission of results. A lot of citizens, civil society organizations engaged that process and wanted to ensure that election credibility and outcomes will not be compromised from the polling, transitioning from the polling unit level to the collation centers. So for the reform for 2026 electoral, the president has signed, but civil society are still engaging to ensure that Nigerians have a trust in the electoral process, and the outcome of the election actually reflects the popular wishes of the Nigerian electorate.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So would you agree that the implementation, has it matched the spirit of the law? Has it worked in alliance with the spirit of the law? And what are the loopholes you Okay, go ahead, sir.
Well, to a very large extent, so if you look at it, it's a bit tricky because Nigeria, like you know, we have a lot of policies, policy framework, including those domesticated in Nigeria. But then the challenge has been operationalizing these legal frameworks to ensure that we get the best value in terms of the impact of those reforms on our electoral processes. You recall that for the general elections that we've had in the past, the introduction of electronic voting came at some point where Nigerians had lost interest in terms of voter apathy in the electoral process, incidences of vote buying, vote trading, ballot box snatching. But as soon as we began to introduce electronic voting to electoral processes, and we have the introduction of the BPAS and the IRF at some point, you see incidences of ballot box snatching as dwindled downward a lot, not because there are no pocket of cases of incidences around, but that reform has ensured that the incidences of ballot box snatching has reduced significantly. And then in terms of voting accreditation and voting concurrently, it was also introduced as a result of electoral reforms processes that happened in the past, which has that has done is that it has ensured that when people are accredited, they are also permitted to vote almost immediately. So the implication of that is that citizens can actually, as a matter of fact, ensure that their vote counts. And what matters most, yes, we would argue that election is not democracy. And I can tell you, in advanced times and the democracy that will pattern us to the United States of America, you still have pockets of incidences that happens across those climes. Election is a mechanism to attain a democratic state. The most important thing is for the citizens to hold government to account. And in holding government to account is beyond just buying the vote. And some of the issues, number one is that in elections, poverty is weaponized. Because poverty is weaponized, it is easier for the political class to buy votes and trade votes. In the Ekiti elections in the past, it was called Dibo Kosebe. That was a popular mantra at that time. It means vote and have some money to cook a pot of soup, right? So the incidences around vote trading and buying has gross implications for our governance process because it makes our democracy really expensive.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight. Now, why is it that how the result of selection transmission, why is it very important when it comes to selection of transmitted results? Why is the need for selection of election results? Why is the need for it to be electronically transmitted?
I think the reason is not far-fetched. Citizens have lost trust. There's distrust and mistrust in the credibility of the electoral process and outcomes. So on the point of the polling unit or voting point, as you may have it, because a lot of people do not understand the difference between a polling unit and a voting point. So at a polling unit might have multiple voting points. And that is why you require that election transmission, even from the polling voting point level to the polling unit, is transmitted electronically, so that citizens are sure that in polling unit XYZ, 10 people voted, there was one bad ballot. It means 9 votes can be legally registered as correct votes. And then people at the end of the day will not get an announced result that in that polling unit 100 persons voted, even when on the voter register you only have 10 persons. So citizens are beginning to be more distrustful of the process, hence the cry for electronic transmission of results.
Okay.
What that means is that the Independent National Electoral Commission has said that for the case of technology, and that's what raised the doors around civil society engagement, that there is a proviso in the new Electoral Act that says that in an instance where the results not being able to be electronically transmitted real time, then it has to be transmitted later. but the citizens are saying that this is a window that can, create incidences of ballot box stuffing or what have you at that level.
Okay, to what extent does vote buying affect the outcome of any electoral result?
To a very great extent, beyond the outcome, in Nigeria, elections and politicking has become transactional. A lot of people now go into politics and see it as an investment. What that means is that when they emerge, and all of this conversation starts from the kind of candidates that political parties field for elections, and how internal democracy in political parties has translated to fielding credible candidates through a free and fair internal party primary process, if you understand what I mean. So the implication is that there's increasing cost of governance. If true dividends of democracy cannot get to the people, the cost of politics is exacerbating the cost of governance. And the implication of that is that there's nothing whoever has spent billions of billions in their election will do when they come to government, because they have to pay through a patronage system. So what you have is a patronage and clientele system that have people pay back those who have supported their electoral mandates and have them emerge as the winners in that election. Again, the challenge of a winner takes it all in Nigerian democracy also has had a bit of challenge on how our governance process this is structured. The citizens still suffers bad roads, inaccessible power supply, no job opportunities for young people, a lot of challenges, increasing taxes, high rate of insecurity, and those are the implications of having a fraught electoral process and outcome. So when people sell their votes during elections, the implication is that you do not expect any dividends of democracy, because politicians see that they are paid the cost before they emerged in such elections. So there are a lot of implications and a lot, again, for democracy in Nigeria as the giant of Africa.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight. Now, the next question. Is this method of voters accreditation currently being used? Is it a perfect method to be used?
Well, our democracy, like I mentioned, and our electoral process is advancing. Maybe not a perfect method, but what has happened, because of course there's the issues of beavers not working, the registration tool, people not able to identify their polling units or voting points, people moving around, the technology is not accepting the voters card. There are a lot of issues, and those are, if you listen to the INEC chair just at a town hall meeting organized 2 days ago, Professor Amukuiton has established that if we can solve issues around logistics for elections, it means that we can have a near perfect election. That was televised nationally on channels, TV, and a lot of media stations. So what that tells you that it may not be perfect right now, but there are chances, and those are the learnings that we think INEC should take forward in terms of how do we ensure that the mock elections that we conduct really addresses challenges around logistics on election day, because election only happens between a certain stipulated time from start to from opening of polls to closing of polls, right? And in between, we are going to have a lot of glitches. those glitches, and I like the way Shimo Okinbaloye puts it. He says there's an INEC staff called glitches. Will INEC be sure that those glitches will be eliminated for the 2027 general election? And the Professor Amuketon quoted to have said, by the grace of God. You know, by the grace of God, yes, it could sound very religious, but for the election of this magnitude, for the implication for our democracy, we need to always ensure that we deal with all of those issues, considering again that for the 2027 elections, INEC votes is over 1 trillion naira for the first time in the history of elections in Nigeria. So like I said, it may not be perfect, but INEC we think should have learned lessons, and civil society is also engaging actively. Election observers, accredited election observers are out there to also report in case there are incidents.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, in your opinion, sir, how do you think the INEC chairman should be appointed?
Well, for some of us that have engaged election process for more than 15 years, 16 years, we think that the INEC chair should come through an independent process, not directly appointed by the president. Unfortunately, what we have now is that the president still ratifies whoever becomes the INEC chair in Nigeria. The true independence of INEC is in its funding. We should have independent funding sources for INEC, so that, and then the end of that process is also when we get to the judiciary, which need to strengthen our judiciary to ensure that at the tribunals there is free, fair processes that ensure that parties who are not very fine with the outcome of the election also get justice if they're able to provide their evidence. So it's a straightforward answer. INEC should be unbundled. The recruitment pathways to becoming INEC chair should also be independent of the political class. And that would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. On the flip side, does failure of technology automatically discredit the election?
Again, no, it doesn't. But the magnitude of the failure will determine if that election will be adjudged free, fair, or credible. So if we have over 700,000 polling units, and in more than 70% there is failure of technology, we cannot say to have had a free, fair, and credible electoral process. But then that is why you have the incident reporting. So if I'm an election observer in polling unit XYZ, I'm able to report that from the opening of polls to the close of polls, voters could not vote in this polling unit. And INEC will take note of that. But then at the end of it, the election observation group and then the INEC are going to announce their result with stating that there are incidences in XYZ. There have been cases in the history of Nigeria where elections have been declared inconclusive because we could not have the voices and choices of the citizens, the voters at polling unit location. So the magnitude of that will determine if it can be adjusted. And recall, we are also conducting our elections in the face of international community. You have International Election Observation Group, the EU Election Observation Group, and the others that will come. They will also document. I don't know if you know that in Nigeria, we also have a methodology called the parallel vote calculation. It's a methodology to independently tabulate election results from sampled polling units across the country. So election observer group are also doing that on this side. So all of those reports will let us know if truly election can be adjudged as free, fair, and credible or not.
Thank you very much for your contribution. A very quick one, sir. Looking at the challenges while conducting elections, ranging from the insecurity, logistics, funding, and all of that. Now, what is the biggest practical challenge facing INEC as of today?
I think if INEC can address the issues around logistics, we would be near having a perfect election. Incidences around security, I think to a very large extent, from observing elections in the past couple of elections, are beginning to, dwindle a bit. Of course, there are a bit of incidences around political thugs, assaulting voters, polling units, and all of that. But the biggest of all of these challenges is around logistics. If we can solve logistics of transporting election materials from point A to B in real time, then you can have our elections made perfect. Because as soon as voters come to a polling unit and number one, they are not able to find their names on the voters list, again, it discourages a lot. And if there is tension, people begin to leave the polling units. So one of the biggest is logistics difficulties. Again, issues around electoral malpractice, vote buying. Vote buying, intimidation, ballot stuffing also still remains a very huge concern in the electoral process, which also to a very large extent puts our election outcome at a very low head in terms of credibility of the process. There is voter apathy because, of course, they have lost confidence. But if INEC can really deal with logistics, issues around logistics, for the terrain that we know in those states, having election materials get to the riverine areas, part of Olympe, the Latte, Ebola, and all of them, where you have to ferry a boat, is a lot of logistics issues. So INEC needs to be more deliberate. We have been doing this since 1999. We need to be more deliberate about our logistics because it has implications for electoral outcomes in terms of INEC capacity to really pretend itself as an independent institution that has conducted a free, fair, and credible election.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. It's an honor having you in the house today.
Thank you so much. Always great to be here.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, the program is still Political Perspective on your darling station IPA 102.7 FM. And yes, the voice you heard, the guest that just finished talking to us is Dr. Adedeji Peter Ademefon. He's a political economist and, of course, a developmental worker of over 2 decades. And he has worked in the last 16 years as supporting and strengthening democracy and ensuring good governance through observation towards engineering free, fair, and credible election outcome. And yes, the studio line is 0816-552-4699. 0816-552-4699 for your contributions and comments regarding what he said today, and of course regarding electoral reforms, talking about a real-time transmission of electoral result. If you have any contribution, reach us on 0816-552-4699. 0816-070-6174, 0806-070-6174 to reach us with your reactions regarding today's topic on political perspective, where we did analyze the electoral reform and of course the real-time transmission of electoral results. 08060706174. Yes, many thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Adedeji Peter Ademefon. It was indeed a pleasure having you in the house. Thank you very much, sir. As we wrap up today's political perspective edition, of course, one thing remains clear. Democracy is a continuous process, so law must be respected at all times. Institutions must be strengthened, opposition must be responsible, and the media must remain objective. Elections are not just about who wins, they are about whether the people trust the process. Until we come your way again, same time, same station, iPower 102.7 FM, we implore you to keep indulging in constructive political analysis. And yes, I am Florence Ibhareman. Stay informed, stay engaged, and of course, always think critically. This has been Political Perspective. Thank you and good morning.
Yeah, 11:15.
DPO, please come and end this game.
Hyper FM, your trusted voice for accurate news, your home for world-class entertainment, exciting sports and everything that matters. We are Hyper 102.7 FM, the pride of the people.
Kí ló ṣe sílẹ̀? Òun protest wà lọ́gbẹ̀sẹ̀.